Hey everyone, happy Friday. Welcome to another free real estate advice Fridays. So I'm pretty under the weather this week, so I'm going to try and keep this pretty brief, and you'll have to excuse my nasal sound. It's not COVID. I feel like we have to say that all the time now when you tell people you're sick. But I've been pretty under the weather this week, so a couple things came up this week, though, I thought would be good for to talk about. And please, as always, if you have anything that is on your mind, please go ahead and post in the comments any questions you'd like me to answer in real time. Or if it's something a little more complicated, we could always take it to a future stream. You'll notice my video has changed quite a bit. So I'm actually going to be part of my business. I don't promote my business too much here. I guess you could make the argument this is all promoting my business, but to talk specifically a little bit about my business, we'd be building out, we always like to kind of pride ourselves on, and again, when I say we, mostly me, I do have some partners that I work with unofficially. So when I say we, it's really talking about my team of people that I work with. So we're actually going to be building out some things. So I really like to kind of pride myself on saying that my clients are going to get white glove service. And that's something that I've always kind of joked with clients. It's kind of the Jerry Maguire model, right? So, there are certain realtors that go for a volume-based business model, which is fine. That's definitely a thing. And that can be fun. I'm actually just, give me 1 second here. I just want to make sure that my sound is coming through okay. Okay, good. Yeah, so, there's different models for entering a real estate business. And there are some, like, just to talk generally, if you deal in bank-owned properties, for example, foreclosures and, short sales and stuff like that, that's generally handled by a very specific type of realtor as a listing agent. And that listing agent, because of the nature of that type of business, deals in volume. That's not necessarily my model. I don't necessarily work in volume. And I really like to joke with my clients that I like that Jerry Maguire model, which is fewer clients, more personal attention. And the idea in real estate is that you love the service that you got and you tell your friends, and that's how I stay in business. And for the most part, that's been the case of how I've built my business, is that, I have people that have done business with me and they've remained very loyal to me. They like the service they got, and they go and say to their friends, listen, if you're selling your house, you got to call Craig. And that is, to me, the perfect model in real estate for me personally. Takes away some of the aspects of having to hustle for business and take on a lot of business that you might not necessarily want to do, but also, it's a bit more organic. It's not pushy. It's not me, digging for business, so to speak. So part of that white glove service, something that I'll be building out as part of my business, is some video offerings. So we get a lot of very standard questions. And one of the things that I'm constantly learning, and to some degree learned this week, is there's a lot of questions that people ask me, definitely not stupid questions, very, very legit questions that it's hard for me to know sometimes whether or not someone would know that. So, we're always kind of walking this line of, would people know that, for example, something that came up this week, totally legitimate question is, should listing agents be at inspections for, the buyers are coming in, they're buying the house, they get an inspection. Should I be there as a listing agent? There's layers to that answer. For the most part, no. Listing agents typically do not attend. I can probably count in my career of, coming up on 100 sales, I can recall one, and that was a very specific situation. And what I told my client this week is there are scenarios where someone might choose to do that. For example, and again, nothing, not to disparage this type of realtor, but if you have a realtor who has low volume, they do 2 or 3 a year, and that could be it's a side job, or they're retired, or whatever the case may be, they just do 2 or 3 a year. There's reasonable expectation that realtor may be at their clients, the inspection of their client's house. They're the listing agent. However, active realtors, that's really not a good use of our time. And if you want the best in the industry, you're probably going to want one of those very active, higher volume realtors. Now, when I say higher volume, for me personally, my benchmark is generally about 25 to 30 sales a year. That to me is you're going to make a pretty decent living. I still have time to service my clients in the way that I feel is fair and that they're getting good value for hiring me. And, as far as getting the 25 to 30 sales, that's the part about real estate that I think a lot of people just don't know how that part works. And we can talk about lead generation and all that stuff and how we get clients. When you get into something where you're going to be doing 50, 60, 70, 100 sales a year, and there are some realtors in New Jersey that do this. There's probably one that everyone knows that, sells a lot of homes in New Jersey. And that's a very different model. It's going to be a very different experience for anyone that chooses to go with that realtor as their listing agent. That's not me. That's not my business. Getting back to that Jerry Maguire conversation. So I wonder if that reference is too old for a lot of people that are working with me. But, the basic idea being that it's a little more hands-on with clients. And my phone's ringing. I'm a little more hands-on with clients. I have time to answer your questions. I'm always available to you. That's kind of the model that I always want to stick to. Now, I do hope to get a little more volume out there, but I will always stick to some form of that model. So some questions that came up this week that I think, a lot of what we're going to be offering is YouTube videos. So we will have the ability to, once you start working with us, there'll be a welcome type video that will be sent to you, and that will explain a lot of the stuff. But then off of that video, you can link to any number of questions that you might have, maybe even questions you don't know you have, and they'll be subject. They'll look exactly like this format, and I will walk you through some of those just basic real estate questions. I mean, to me, some of the stuff is actually pretty interesting. So I think people will enjoy the videos regardless. But I want it to be a little bit of an educational thing. Now, of course, you can always still ask me these questions, but I think there's questions that people feel funny asking me, or they don't think to ask me until it pops up, or I don't think to tell them because I might think, there's certain things that we assume people know, and then we find out that they don't. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. It's just, I don't want to talk your ear off about things that I assume you know. So this is that gray area that I think we'll be addressing with the YouTube video. So you'll see the rollout of that coming very soon. And again, it'll be kind of this talking format that you're seeing now. Hence the change in lighting that you're seeing behind me and the new camera and everything else. So I want it to look a little more polished. And the reason being is that I want to provide that to my clients and, obviously a prospecting tool too, because I would think that my client would see these videos and say, this is super helpful. My son is looking to buy a house soon. I'm going to send him over to this channel. And if people come to me that way, I think that's a great way to do business. They see me, they're comfortable with me. They've seen me talk. They look at me and they say, this guy seems reasonable enough. I'm going to work with him. And that if that brings me business, that's fantastic. So you'll see a little bit of that rollout coming soon. So let's talk about a couple of questions that I got this week. The first one I want to talk about, and I'm sure I've talked about this before, but I think it's good to revisit, is pre-approvals. Okay, so I got a question this week. Someone who wants to go check out a house that is an interesting situation. So the reason you see me pausing on some of these issues is I have to be careful what I say, if I'm talking about active listings and stuff like that. So let me generalize this real quick. Let's say that I get a call from someone who wants to see a house. Okay. Now I get a lot of calls. I get calls from people that want to see my house, the house that I've listed, and they want to see a house that they're in my network of people that are getting emails from me with listings and whatnot. And they see something in the email and they say, Craig, finally, we see one we like, let's go see it. And then I get calls from random people that, find me on Zillow or Google or whatever. And they say, hey, Craig, can you help us go look at this house? All of those are possible scenarios. So in this situation, this was someone I haven't worked with. They have contacted me before, so we have some familiarity with each other. And but this happens all the time, and it's a very standard thing, and it's very, very reasonable. Boy, I'm busy today. Very reasonable question. But the question is essentially, do I need a pre-approval before you'll take me to see a house? Now, as I explained to this person, it's not necessarily a 100% yes. Okay, but heavy caveats here. So Pre-approvals before you see a house. Couple things. Number one, many considerations here. Number one being price point. All right. So let's say we have a house that's $800,000. Okay. Someone calls me, they want to go see it. A very common question I'm going to get from the listing agent is, does your client have a pre-approval? Because obviously it's an $800,000 house. They don't want people coming in that clearly can't afford the $800,000 house. Now, that's not to say that people are just being nosy and going to see this house. It's more that they're going to find out once they get qualified that they can't quite afford $800,000. If they can only afford $700,000, really, I shouldn't take you to see it. Now, if that house has been on the market for 6 months, you're approved for $700,000, and I have a little bit of a conversation with the listing agent beforehand and say, hey, look, I know they're only approved for $700,000. You've been on the market for 6 months. They may have some other resources they can pull in and get that number up a little bit. So maybe that would work. And that's, that's a very honest conversation up front. That's a different story. But I think what happens is a lot of people go through the pre-approval process and they thought they were going to buy an $800,000 house and they find out they can only afford $650,000. So really, it's really not worth our time. But also remember, there's people living there most likely. If it's vacant, it's a little bit of a different story. But there's people living there. They got to take their kids, dogs, whatever, work day, school day, whatever. They got to leave the house. I have to take a break from my work day to go help you see the house, and you have to come with me. And none of us, it's not worth any of our time because essentially you can't afford the house. So that's one reason why pre-approval is very important. Number two is obviously that, you may find out that you can't get pre-approved. There might be a very specific reason. You have a credit thing, or there's maybe only certain programs are available to you, price points, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously that would be a reason too. So we don't want to inconvenience our seller because it's not going to create a good thing. Listing agent. Listen, this is a relationship business. So if I know the listing agent, and if it's in Hunterdon County, it's a good chance I do know the listing agent. And, I'm showing my client a house that I don't know for a fact they can afford. And that listing agent is going to their client saying, hey, can you clear out the house Friday at 3:00? Craig wants to bring someone through to look at the house. And then we find out that my client can't even afford the house. Obviously, that's putting out a lot of people. Exceptions to this rule. Number one, you're paying cash. If you're paying cash, I would prefer to see a proof of funds ahead of time for all of the reasons I just stated. It's confidence that I can tell the listing agent, hey, this person is super qualified for this home. They can come in right away. They can buy cash buyer, which everyone loves the sound of a cash buyer. That is cash is king. We know that. No appraisal concerns, quick close. There's a lot of reasons that cash buyers are great. But if you can show me proof of funds, what a proof of funds is for me, this is going to be different when you send that proof of funds as part of the buying process. But just for me to show you a house, I just need to see the first page of a bank statement. You can go ahead and cross out the account numbers because I'm not doing anything with that. It's really just proof to me that you are in fact a qualified buyer. So on there should be a name and address and a balance on the first page of every bank statement. You'll see a balance on there. That balance should be higher than the house we're looking at. It's very simple. Now you can give me multiple. I've had people give me 2 or 3 because they have it in a 401k and a checking account and a savings account. Fine. Perfect. And this happens all the time. People do it. People get freaked out when I say that. Like, I'm going to send you my bank statement. I mean, yeah, you're trying to buy a very expensive item and we have to do some level of due diligence. Now, when you do it later, when it's part of the process, you actually can't blank out those account numbers. You have to actually provide those. It's all confidential, of course, but for as far as me just showing you a house, that's fine. Situation number 2. I'm reluctant to put this out publicly because I think it is very much a case-by-case basis. However, if you are in the process of getting a pre-approval, because this does take some time and it is tedious. And especially if that process is with one of the lenders I've recommended to you, and that person said, yep, I have their application where we are working on it. There's that sickness coming in. We're working on the pre-approval. Great. You know what? While you're working on that, let's go look at the house. Fine, because we're going to have a relationship of some sort. You're working on it. You're doing your due diligence. That's a show to me that you are in fact doing what you need to do, and no one's wasting anyone's time, and we're going to go look at the house. That's perfectly fine. So that would be another exception. And, beyond that, there are certain scenarios. But if you're just going to be like, no, we want to look at that. This is the most common thing I get. We want to go look at the house to be sure before we get the pre-approval. I probably will not take you to see the house. Now, here's the thing. That's not a hard, fast rule in real estate. I don't have to do that. But again, I don't want to upset my listing agent because we might be making an offer on that house. I don't want them upset that I'm showing without a pre-approval. I want them to trust that I've done my due diligence. That is a big part of being a buying agent. I want to know that you are not wasting my time. I know that can sound harsh, but obviously I'm busy. I'm trying to service other clients. I'm trying to help existing clients. I'm trying to build my business and get new clients and all these things. And I have to take a break from that to go show you a house. Now, if you're not going to get a pre-approval, that's a little bit of a problem for me because it potentially shows that you're not respecting my time or my professional stance, that you really should get that pre-approval. Now, what I'm about to say, I'm not a lender, but at a high level, let me explain to you why I take that stance. Getting a pre-approval is, although slightly tedious, is pretty easy. And here's the thing. If you don't get a pre-approval and I take you to see this house that you want to see, and what's the best case scenario for both of us if I go take you to see that house, especially in this market, is you like it. Well, guess what? We can't put an offer in because I don't have your pre-approval. And that's going to take a few days. And in that few days in this market, what do you think is probably going to happen? Is that house is no longer available. So why did we go look at it in the first place, right? When you get a pre-approval, there's a couple interesting things. First of all, as far as again, I'm not a lender. I'm just giving you some very general things that I've heard in my professional position. I've obviously heard this a lot from my lenders, but as far as taking a credit hit because you put an inquiry on your credit for getting a pre-approval, I've heard anywhere from it's 3 to 6 points. It'll be gone in 3 to 6 months. That is not going to have a major effect on your ability to get a mortgage. So that's not a reason to not get a pre-approval. If you, what I will tell you just from personal experience is what generally happens is you do or don't like the house that we went to go look at. And, you decide that, well, this house isn't perfect, but I want to keep shopping. Well, then fine. But now we really need the pre-approval. So why not just get it ahead of time? So that is why, basically I ask my clients for that minimum standard of, I'll tell you what, get the application in, show me that you're working on it. In the meantime, I'll go show you a house as a courtesy. Now, I'm not going to take you out and show you 6 houses. That's a different story. A typical Friday or Saturday showing session of stringing together 5 or 6 showings, we're going to need to have a pre-approval because at that point, you really potentially could be wasting everyone's time because if you like one of those 6 houses, which is very likely, we can't do anything about it because we don't have a pre-approval in place. I can't write an offer. So that's why, essentially. We've had situations recently where on my listings, this has come up to some degree where the financial qualifications of our buyer came into question. It's come up quite a bit over the last few years. This is why, I, as a listing agent, and it's something that's kind of evolving with me, is I'm learning that I have to maybe be careful with how much faith I put in my buying agent on my listing, the buying agent that's coming to bring a buyer to me on my listing, how much they've vetted this out. Now, here's the rebuttals I get on this subject. The rebuttals are, my cousin's a realtor and he says he doesn't require a pre-approval to show houses. All right. So here's my questions about your cousin. Number one, is your cousin a full-time active realtor selling more than 20 homes a year? Because if he's not, no offense to your cousin, that's fantastic. If he sells 12 a year, that's extremely impressive. Selling 12 homes a year, you can make a living off of that. That's great. However, someone who's in that next level of selling 25, 30 homes a year is a very high producing, high functioning, serious realtor, is going to always try to do things at a very high level. Now, there are local realtors here that when they call me to show my listing, I'm like, great. I know this person very well. I'm very comfortable with them. I know they've done their due diligence. When I get people I don't know, especially from out of the area, especially out here in Hunterdon, because there are a lot of layers to Hunterdon real estate, septic systems and setbacks and acreage and zoning and all that, all these kind of issues that people from out of the area really aren't all that familiar with. Propane heat, oil heat, stuff like that. I think I'm learning in my business that I actually have to be a little more careful to make sure that they've done their due diligence with their buyer. So that's why I point this out, is I get resistance on this question a lot. And it's because of there are realtors out there that will take you out completely without question, having never asked about a pre-approval. That is not how I like to do business. And it is for your benefit, believe it or not, in that we can't make an offer on the house. I don't have any faith. I can't pass anything along to the listing agent as far as like qualifications or anything. So there's a lot of reasons here. The bottom line is it's not going to help you get that house. So that's why. So you may get that answer from other realtors. Listen, I'm sure a lot of people call me up and say, hey, I want to go see this house. That's great. Jane, do you have a pre-approval? No, we don't. We'll be working on that. We want to see the house first to see if we like it. Jane, I really appreciate you reaching out to me. Unfortunately, in this situation, I don't think I'll be able to show you the house because you don't have a pre-approval. Are you working on getting a pre-approval? No, we're going to wait. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm happy to recommend a lender to you. And if you would, like to put an application in, then yes, I can probably show you one as a courtesy. That's fine. Thanks for your help. I know what Jane's doing at that point. She's picking up the phone and calling literally the next realtor on Zillow or Google. And, she's going to keep going until she finds someone that's like, yeah, I'll show you the house, because eventually you're going to find someone that needs the business that bad. And to them, that's a hot lead. To me, I'm vetting my leads a little more because I'm more of a producer. And again, I don't say that as a brag. It's just simply an illustration of how those of us that take this very seriously have certain business practices that may initially clash with a client, but it is actually for the greater good. Okay. So that is a very common question we get. I got it again this week. I thought it would be a good thing to just discuss real quick. Not the most fascinating subject, I'll admit. And I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, geez, I've been talking about this for like 15 minutes. All right. So that's the pre-approval things. I did get asked that question this week about listing agents attending inspections. It's a complicated question. And, I was one of my clients brought it up to me, and it's a good question. I mean, there would be zero expectation that one of my clients would know this at a time. And it's actually what kind of triggered that thought in my head is like, man, I really am excited about rolling out these videos because I think it will answer a lot of these questions. And, so there's a lot of layers here. The way that an inspection works is basically that the buyer's agent, the buyer of the home is going to hire their own inspector, independent inspector. That inspector is going to come in with the buyers in attendance and inspect the house. And they can look for whatever they want and they can communicate the whole time. And really what that is for most buyers is time to learn about the house. You're about to move into this house. Let me show you a few things. Here's the water shut off. Here's the gas shut off. Here's how your furnace works. Here's where the filters are. Also, you should be aware of this and this and this. So it's not just, the sole purpose isn't just what's wrong with this house. It's also, let me teach you about your house. It's a huge, generally on let's say a 3,000 square foot, you're looking at 2.5 to 3 hours, most likely. Very important day for buyers. So as part of that, for various reasons, including liability, listing agents really don't go to these. Now, have I ever attended one? I've attended one. Very specific situation. which I won't get into, but I basically just stayed in the kitchen and worked on my computer while they buzzed around the house. It was slightly awkward. I think they, deserve that privacy. But again, for certain reasons, contents of the house or, clients' needs or whatever the case may be, they might want me there. That's fine. It's not generally something that we practice. I'm probably going to work while I'm there. I can't follow them around. That's pushing it too far. But it's a good question. So again, we will be putting out these videos to answer these questions for people. But generally speaking, in my business practice, again, as someone who's a producing realtor, I do not attend the inspections of my listings. If that is a concern with you, if you were listing with me and you had a concern, again, for a specific reason, there could be a number of reasons, you just let me know. That's totally fine. But actually a very good question. And again, something that I kind of forget that people might not necessarily know that. So thank you to my client for asking me that question this week. It was a good reminder. Inspections in general, this is the last thing I'll kind of talk about because this has been a hot topic over the last few weeks. Inspections in general. So in this market, or in a seller's market, sellers hold most of the cards. However, I think if you spoke to most realtors nowadays, we use this language in a lot of our offers that mentions that we will limit inspection requests to health, safety, and structural. This has become standard language in the industry, unspoken. It just shows up in every offer. And when you start taking like 25, 30 offers, which we were a while back, and you start seeing that thing echoed across many, many offers, and then you as a listing agent, you're like, oh, geez, I guess I should start writing that in my offers because I guess people are expecting it. Health, safety, and structural makes sense. So let's say, what would be health? Mold, septic, right? Two obvious ones. Sewer lines, obvious. Health. What would be safety? Fire hazards, handrails, but like egregious handrails, not just, missing handrails in the thing where you might not really need a handrail, but like stuff where it's like generally a safety hazard, tripping hazards, potentially, stuff like that. And then structural, obviously, major structural defects where you need to call in an engineer because the house is sagging or, something major like that. I think that's what most of us in Spirit are talking about. Now, when it gets time to, you do your inspections, you come up now. I've told this to clients many times this past week. There's no such thing as a perfect inspection. It literally doesn't happen. I mean, you are going to get a 60-page report when that house is done. The bigger the house, the more issues they're going to find. That does not mean, and this is, again, something that's not talked about enough, is when that report gets sent over. So a lot of what the attorneys do, a lot of different attorneys, is they get the report, the full report, and they send it immediately over to the other side of the transaction. So again, buyers hired their inspector, they got a full report, and then they send it over to the listing agent, say, hey, heads up, here's the report. That doesn't mean we're going to ask for all these things. We're just letting you know, here's all the things that were found. So when that comes over, I think the intent of that, and not all attorneys do this, it's a strategy for sure, is, all right, well, let's see what they found. Now, there could be things that the listing parties were aware of. They were waiting. I know they're going to find out about the handrails on the deck, and I'm waiting. There it is. It's in the report. And some of it is we found something that maybe they weren't expecting, and we want to soften the blow and say, hey, just a heads up so you can start kind of talking about how we're going to deal with this, and we will get back to you with numbers and whatnot, but want to let you know that your septic failed. Okay. So now comes negotiation time. Again, in this market, especially if you use that as part of your offer, you use that health, safety, and structural language, becomes an issue of what are the sellers going to give you back towards this. That could be a reduction in sales price, it could be a credit, or they could actually do the repairs. Generally speaking, it's pretty evenly split across those three possibilities. It really kind of depends on different scenarios and whatnot, but it's generally some combination of those three things. This is round two of negotiations. These go any number of ways. In this market, it goes anywhere from we're not repairing a thing, tough, we have 3 other offers behind you, to, okay, we'll work with you and we'll figure this out and we'll offer you a credit, or we're going to go ahead and fix the things. I've had all 3 of those things happen. I've had clients with listings that actually they get that report and they just start fixing things. And that's fantastic. And I usually have to say, whoa, pump the brakes. That's not what that is. You don't have to start fixing things. But some, clients are very proactive, and that's fine. It's all in good spirit. They want the thing to go through, and they're thorough. And it ranges for my listing clients. It ranges from people that are like, oh my God, I want to address all these things. I want to make sure they get this house in great condition. And then I get other clients that's just not how they feel. They're like, listen, we're leaving here. We don't want to lift a finger. That is the spectrum. So where you're going to fall in that, and what your sellers are like and what your buyers are like, is all over that spectrum. And that right there is the value of a realtor to help get you through that in accordance with whatever your attorney is doing. And sometimes the attorney and the realtor are working together to feel out the situation. What are your impressions of the other agent? Is he coaching his clients properly? Are the sellers themselves, have they seemed reasonable up to this point? So there's a lot of layers. So those inspection negotiations, definitely round 2 negotiations, right? Round 1 was price and terms, and round 2 is, all right, we did the inspections and there are some issues. Now we have to figure out how we're going to resolve these. Now, keep in mind, if you can't come to an agreement there, the contract is dead. It's over. Knocking on wood, because I have pending deals, but generally speaking, these things tend to work out. People at that point in the process, you're probably about halfway through the transaction. It's in everyone's best interest to figure out a way to work it out. So, that round of inspections can be very tense, very trying, almost always is, especially in this market. One of the things that comes up a lot is, and I have a problem with this line of thinking, is, hey, just so you know, we have 3 other offers, backup offers waiting. And in certain situations where it's a kind of an egregious repair, something that needs to be addressed, it's like, yeah, you do, but aren't those people going to have the same issue that we have with this house? So it's, kind of a faulty negotiating tactic as far as I'm concerned. But that, again, is where I want to provide value to you. So I can tell you what industry standards are. I can tell you my impression of the other side of the negotiating table. I can tell you what I think about the listing agent and how reasonable they've been, how they're coaching their clients. Are they coaching them properly to say, listen, you got to fix some of these things. It's just, that's the standard these days. If you don't do it now, the next person's going to have the same number of problems. And technically, if we find something and you don't fix it and the deal dies, you actually have to disclose that problem to the next people that come through. Does that always happen? Impossible to track, but technically that's true. So that to me is why, getting back to what I was talking to earlier, is not dealing in necessarily large volume of clients. Dealing with this, my sweet spot, I think, is probably 25 to 40 clients a year, 25 to 40 transactions a year, where I still have time to be hands-on with you, give you a call and say, all right, let's talk through things. The most important thing that I want to mention is call me if you have questions that come up, because I want to help. I might not know, timing is everything. So my workday looks very interesting. I don't think anyone understands what my workday looks like, but at various times I'm working on current transactions and issues. I'm working on paperwork. I'm working on finding new clients. I'm working on promotional items. I'm working on getting a new listing ready. It's a very diverse day. So whether or not I saw an email that came through from an attorney or an inspector or anything is a question mark. I could be sitting at my desk and I could have immediately seen it. A lot of times my client calls me and say, oh my God, did you just see that email came through? Yes, I just read it. And they're like, wow, Craig is super fast. No, I was just sitting in my office and it came up and it's very important and I saw it. Other times I might be, in a muddy field doing a septic, well, not doing, but, witnessing a septic inspection. I might not have seen that email. So, to me, this is the value of me as your realtor. So that's pretty much it for today. I actually have to sign off real quick because I have a doctor's appointment, telehealth doctor's appointment to see if I can get rid of the sickness. So that's it for this week. Hopefully that was helpful. Good questions that came on my radar this week. I think they're really important subjects. Keep an eye out for the YouTube videos that I'll be rolling out slowly. If you're an existing client, you'll be seeing them first because I think, with the way things have gone recently, I think it's important to get ahead of some questions. And I want people to be able to basically have a library of reference videos that they can look at to see how the process is going to go and get ahead of some of those questions that I don't even know that you have. And maybe those could spur new questions that you're going to ask me, and that's totally fine too. So keep an eye out for that rollout. As always, please like these and comment if you have questions for future sessions. I will be doing these pretty much every Friday when I can. And as always, thanks for all of your support. I saw a few people on, and I know that a lot of these get watched afterwards, but thanks as always for tuning in, and I will see you all soon. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.